October 29th, 1929, Black Tuesday, the day that everything came crashing down. But what exactly happened that sent shockwaves through the entire world and plunged millions into despair? Today, we unravel the story of the Great Depression, an economic catastrophe that reshaped the course of history. Before we dive in, let me ask you, have you ever wondered what life was like when the entire economy crumbled? Or how people survived when their lives turned upside down overnight? By the end of this video, you'll not only know the answers, but see how the lessons of that era remain shockingly relevant today. So stick around, because this story will blow your mind. The 1920s were a time of extravagance and excess, often called the Roaring Twenties. The stock market was booming, people were spending freely, and the American dream seemed within reach for everyone. Or so they thought. Beneath this dazzling facade was a fragile economy teetering on the edge of disaster. The cracks began to show as speculation in the stock market reached dangerous levels. People were borrowing money to invest, convinced that stock prices would keep going up. But what happens when a bubble grows too big? Eventually it bursts, and burst it did. October 1929. It started with unease. Prices began to drop, and whispers of panic rippled through Wall Street. Then, on Black Tuesday, the unthinkable happened. The market crashed. Billions of dollars vanished in a single day. Imagine waking up to find your life savings gone, your job in jeopardy, and your future uncertain. That was the reality for millions. But the crash was only the beginning. Dominoes began to fall. Banks collapsed as people rushed to withdraw their savings. Businesses couldn't stay afloat without credit. Farms were foreclosed and unemployment soared. By 1933, a staggering 25% of Americans were out of work. Think about that. 1 in 4. People had no income. How would you survive in a world like that? The pain of the Great Depression wasn't just economic, it was deeply personal. Families were torn apart as breadwinners traveled miles to look for work. People lived in shanty towns, nicknamed Hoovervilles, after President Herbert Hoover, who many blamed for the crisis. And then there was the Dust Bowl. Picture this. Farmers in the Midwest, already struggling, were hit with years of drought and dust storms that turned their fields into barren wastelands. Entire families packed up and left, becoming refugees in their own country. Have you ever heard the term Okies? It comes from these desperate migrants, many of whom headed west to California in search of a better life. But even in the darkest times, there were glimmers of hope. In 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt was elected president. He promised the American people a New Deal and delivered on that promise with bold programs designed to pull the country out of the Depression. Roosevelt's New Deal wasn't just about economics, it was about restoring hope. Programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration put millions of people back to work. The Social Security Act gave Americans a safety net for the first time. But was it enough? Could these programs truly fix an economy so deeply broken? The truth is, the Great Depression didn't end with the New Deal. It lingered for years, and it took the massive industrial mobilization of World War II to finally bring the economy back to full strength. The war created jobs, boosted manufacturing, and reignited the spirit of innovation that had been missing for so long. But what about today? Could something like the Great Depression happen again? Some say it already has. Let's talk about the 2008 financial crisis. Banks failed, unemployment rose, and millions lost their homes. Sound familiar? The Great Recession, as it's now called, was a stark reminder that the lessons of the past must never be forgotten. And as we face new challenges, from global pandemics to climate crises, it's more important than ever to understand what went wrong in the 1930s. But let's take a step back and dig deeper into the lives of ordinary people during the Great Depression. Have you ever heard of the forgotten man? This term was used to describe the average working American who bore the brunt of the economic collapse. Imagine standing in a breadline for hours just to feed your family. Imagine losing your home to foreclosure and having to live in a car or a makeshift shelter. For many, this wasn't just a possibility, it was reality. The stories of individuals during this time are both heartbreaking and inspiring. Take the story of the bonus army, for example. In 1932, thousands of World War I veterans marched to Washington, D.C. to demand early payment of their military bonuses. These men had served their country only to be met with poverty and desperation when they returned home. Their protest was met with violence as the government used troops to disperse them. Can you imagine the betrayal they must have felt? Or consider the artists and writers of the era. Despite the hardship, this period gave birth to some of the most iconic works of American culture. John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath captured the struggles of migrant families, while Dorothea Lange's photographs brought the plight of the poor into sharp focus. Art became a way to document and process the collective pain of the nation. And what about the children? For many kids, the Great Depression was a time of lost innocence. Schools closed, families couldn't afford basic necessities, and childhood. Dreams were put on hold. Yet even in these tough times, kids found ways to adapt and survive. Now, let's shift gears and look at the global impact of the Great Depression. This wasn't just an American crisis, it was a worldwide phenomenon. In Europe, countries like Germany and Britain faced similar economic downturns. In fact, the financial instability in Germany is often cited as a factor that paved the way for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. Think about that for a moment. The Great Depression didn't just change individual lives. It altered the course of global history. So what can we learn from all of this? The Great Depression was a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed and inequality. It showed us the importance of strong leadership and the need for a safety net to protect the most vulnerable. But it also taught us something else: resilience. Despite the immense suffering, people found ways to survive, adapt, and rebuild. That resilience is a lesson we can carry with us today. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining me on this journey through one of the most pivotal eras in history. What part of the Great Depression's story resonated with you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves history. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that connect the past to our present. Until next time, remember, history isn't just about what happened, it's about what we learn and how we grow from it. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.